Hello everybody, and welcome back to English for Writing Business Emails. I'm Brian Stewart, and in this video lesson we're going over the last half of Unit 4 in the book English for Writing Business Emails. And as always, if you haven't purchased a copy, please consider doing so. There's order information and there are a couple of links in the description of the video down below this video. Okay, so let's get started. Now, Unit 4 is talking about choosing the proper tone when you are writing an email. And I left off in the last lesson talking about the difference between Germanic and Latinate vocabulary in English. So let's continue this theme. Now, as I mentioned in the last part of the last video lesson, there are two main influences or two main sources of vocabulary in the English language. One is German and the other is Latin. And if we take a look at the different words, or we can line them up, we can line up many German words, and we can find the corresponding Latin word that means the same thing. Now, of course, this drives a lot of English language learners crazy because they're like, oh my gosh, English has so many different words that you have to remember massive amounts of vocabulary. And I'm sorry about that, but there's a historical reason for that, and I'll explain very briefly why there is. But it's important to know this difference because it's important to be able to choose the vocabulary that you want to convey the proper tone in your email. And just a very quick look at just a few words. For example, German root words. For example, I've got them on this slide here. Ask, answer, tell, come, and help. If you know anything about German, you can really see the strong relationship between these English words and their German counterpart. For example, answer in German, you say Antwort, right? Come. In German, come is kommen, basically the same. For example, kommen Sie hier bitte means, would you come here please? Help in German, helfen. So you can see very clearly the relationship, the very close relationship between these words in English and their origin words in German. Now, of course, they've changed over time. Ask and tell have changed over time, so they're unrecognizable with their English and German counterparts, but if you go back in history, you could recognize them. You did a bit of detective work. But anyway, these words over here on the side, right, these are the Germanic words, and they're very basic, very tough, right? This is the old Anglo-Saxon warrior, right? Over here, we have the more elegant, and they mean the same thing. You can ask somebody a question, or you can inquire about something, right? You can answer a question or a request. You could respond to it, or you can give a response, right? You can tell somebody something, or you can inform them of something. You can come to a place, or you could arrive at a place. You can help somebody, or you can assist somebody, right? This is what drives English language learners crazy, and I'm sorry about that there are so many different words that mean the same thing. So why is there this difference between the two languages? Well, again, my purpose is not to give you a full history lesson. In fact, when I teach email writing workshops, I usually tell the students, okay, hey, you guys, I know we're here to study email writing, but would you like a 3-minute history lesson, just very brief? And then, people are usually interested in history. So very briefly, and I know missing a lot of important details, but just briefly to give you an idea of these two influences in English and why they are important when you choose language to adopt a certain tone. Let's just very quickly go over this. Now, you may know from history that the Romans occupied Britain a long time ago. They invaded Britain about almost exactly 2,000 years ago, and they were there for hundreds of years. And this map kind of shows their area of influence, or the area that they had control over. Now, in 420 CE, what was going on? The Roman Empire was crumbling due to forces from within and from outside, and basically the Romans left Britain. Now, why were they leaving Britain also? Like I said, they were getting a lot of pressure from what they call barbarian tribes coming in and attacking the Roman Empire. And some of these tribes also were suffering. They were leaving because people were moving in from the east as well. And there are 4 main German tribes that are our focus here. This is the origin for the German influence in the English language. You see the Jutes, Angles, Saxons, and Frisians. And they settled these two areas. Now, the two main groups, of course, were the Angles and the Saxons, and you've probably heard the word Anglo-Saxon before. That's because these two were the dominant tribes. Now, this word here is of importance to us because angle. Now, there's, not, when you go far back in history where there is a scarcity of written records, it's hard to figure out, where words come from, but many people think that, angle, the word angle comes from this area because the people were fishermen. If you think about it, angler means to fish or to angle, but other people say, no, it was the shape of their land. It was kind of like an angle. So there's some controversy about where the name came from, but it is important to notice that angle is where the word English comes from. Over the centuries, angle changed to English to represent these people and the language that they spoke, the Anglo-Saxons, who were basically from a German-speaking area, Germanic-speaking peoples who moved into Britain. They effectively replaced the Romans and the Britons who were living here before. So, the retreating Romans left a power vacuum. Now, as far as, the middle of the 4th century onwards, we have Anglo-Saxons in this area speaking a language that is very closely related to Germanic because that is their origin. Then what happens? In about 500 years later, 400, 500 years later, 1066, Common Era, William the Conqueror successfully invades from Normandy in France. Now, William was from the Norman region of France. Norman is interesting because Norman comes from Northmen. These were actually the descendants of Viking warriors who came down and claimed or were gifted a large part of land in France by the king. And so that's interesting because they also had a Germanic linguistic background, but because they settled in France, they adopted the French language and they spoke a variant of French. So by the time that they came over and conquered in 1066, they were French speaking. Now, what happened as a result of their successful invasion? Well, William the Conqueror, he becomes the new ruler of England, and he gives land to his Norman followers, all of whom speak French. So now they are the upper class. They are the royalty. And so they're speaking French. And what is French? Basically, French is an evolution of Latin. French has its basics, its roots in Latin. And in fact, the Romance languages, Spanish, French, Italian, are descendants of Latin. So of course, their languages have strong roots, and obviously most of the vocabulary is from the old Latin sources. Now, it's not to say that Latin disappeared. Latin was still used for many government purposes and administrative purposes in medieval Europe, throughout medieval Europe. And during the time of William the Conqueror and the upper class, what you have is you have two classes of people, right? You have the upper class and you have the lower classes. The upper class are speaking Latin or French, and the lower classes are speaking Old English, which is Anglo-Saxon English, which has a strong Germanic influence. So the perception, obviously, of the language is that, oh, well, educated people speak with these elegant, difficult words, and the lower class speak with very basic, short words. And that kind of mindset, that kind of philosophy settled in for centuries. Of course, the two languages came together and formed modern-day English, but that took hundreds of years. So, the result of all this, the point for this lesson is that English speakers today consider Germanic words as very basic words. They're usually short words, they're concrete, and they're blunt. Many short common English words are Germanic. You in German, du. Is in German, ist, right? They obviously very strong Germanic origins. These are the basic words that form the structure of most sentences, but they are considered as basic, easy words to learn. On the other hand, the Latinate words are considered more elegant, right? English words that have Latin origins are usually longer words. They have prefixes and suffixes. Pre means before. It might be a little part of the word at the beginning of the word. For example, unbelievable, right? Un comes before unbelievable, right? So that is a prefix. And able is a suffix. Suffix, it comes after the word. So not in Latin, believe, being able to believe in something, able, having the capacity or the ability to do something. Able is a suffix. So, of course, this also occurs in Greek. And of course, I don't want to get too involved here, but the Romans borrowed a lot of Greek. They borrowed a lot of Greek language and culture and ideas and philosophy when they conquered Greece. So there's also a lot of Greek influence in there as well. Anyway, English words that have Latin origins are usually longer. They're more abstract. They describe more abstract ideas, more academic ideas, more philosophical ideas, right? And they're usually indirect, not so direct words. So when English users want to impress others, they will use words that originate from Latin. And you can see this not only in the way that people speak during a job interview, for example, but also in the way that they write. Are they writing an email to their friends? They're probably using simple basic words. Or are they writing a letter to a prospective client? They will be using more elegant, more fancy or fancier words, right? More academic words, and those are usually from Latin origin. Now, many people do this and they don't even realize it, but that is a historical reason, and it might be interesting to you in determining or figuring out, why are there so many words, which word should I use in which situation, right? Well, this kind of gives you a basic understanding of that. So in the book, from pages 47 to 48, and you can see I've also got this, the same information that we talked about before on page 49, but on pages 47 and 48, I wanted to give you some examples of how choosing, a Germanic word or a Latinate word can make your sentence seem more formal and more professional. Now, of course, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that you should avoid words that have Germanic origins. No, absolutely not. And I'm not saying you should always use words that have Latin origins. I'm not saying that either. What I'm saying is that you should choose the right word for the correct situation. So if you want to sound more professional, you want to make a more professional impression or a more formal impression upon your reader, then use Latinate. But it's interesting, if you want to be friendlier with someone and you want to project more or warmer feelings, you might use the Germanic origin words. So anyway, we can see how that works out on pages 47 and page 48. On these two pages, I have two groupings, sometimes two, sometimes three, and we should choose which word is more formal according to the sentences. And according to the sentences, at the end of each sentence, I wrote formal. In the book, I put less formal, but to save space here, I put informal. The first grouping we have here, also on the screen, is the difference between convenient versus good or okay. Now, convenient is obviously a Latin root word, convenient, right? 3 syllables. Good, gut in German, right? Das ist gut, right? So good is obviously from a Germanic origin. Okay, there's many theories about where okay came from, but I just threw it in here because it's also synonymous with good, but it doesn't have a Germanic origin. But anyway, number 1, I am able to meet on Friday if that is beep for you. So which would be more formal, if that is good for you or if that is convenient for you? Which sounds more formal? Well, you would probably choose convenient. Obviously, that sounds more formal, if that is convenient for you. So number 2, I can meet on Friday if that's good for you. That sounds more informal. Now, I'd like to also point out something here. You can see that it's not just these words here that is the difference. I've also made some other differences here. In the first one, more formal, I said I am able to. Here I said I can. I am able to is more formal than saying I can. Also, we can see that is or that's, right? That's one of the rules we talked about in the last lesson. Don't contract in formal writing. That is a very common rule. So there are obviously some other changes to sentence number 1, but it also shows that convenient is more suited for this sentence than good. Okay? So our next pairing is assistance versus help. And as we saw in a previous slide, assistance is more formal than help. Help is of Germanic origin. Helfen, right? So sentence number 3, thank you for your beep in this matter, which would sound more formal. Of course, assistance. Thank you for your assistance in this matter. When you're writing an email, you want to thank somebody. This is a good expression to use. Thank you for your assistance in this matter. Of course, you could also just write, thanks for your help. Thanks for your help. But that's more informal. It's a little more friendlier, but it is not as formal as number 3. Okay? Next, we have the difference between inform and let someone know, in this case, everyone know. If I put a word in parentheses here, it means you have to use it in the sentence. I'm just helping you out here. So, which is more formal? I would like to beep everybody that the meeting has been postponed. Would you say I would like to inform, I would like to let everybody know that? Well, obviously we have everybody here already, so that wouldn't fit, but obviously it's I would like to inform everybody that the meeting has been postponed. Oh, by the way, I notice this is kind of a common mistake with my students. When you use inform, you need an object. I would like to inform everybody. I would like to inform him. I would like to inform Mr. Lee, right? You need an object after inform. So whom do you inform? Okay. Number 6, just wanted to, obviously we use let everyone know that we've changed the meeting time, right? Let people know something is informal. I'll get into this a little bit more later, but just know that these multi-word verbs, sometimes called phrasal verbs, are Germanic in origin. So just wanted to let everyone know that we've changed the meeting time. Again, here we have contraction, so again, that's informal. But if you inform someone, that sounds more formal than letting people know about something. Both are okay, just depends on your purpose. Okay, next we have in reply to, as opposed to answer. And here, of course, Latinate reply, Germanic answer. So, number 7, more formal, what should we say? We should choose in reply to. And then, of course, I used your email to help you guys out, because when you say in reply to, you should say in reply to what? In reply to your email, in reply to your question, in reply to your phone call, right? In reply to what? Don't just say in reply to dated June 15th. What? We're missing something, right? In reply to your email dated June 15th. By the way, this is very formal style when you date something. We are able to ship internationally. We are able to, instead of we can, right? It sounds more formal. Number 8, just to answer your question, we can ship internationally. And by the way, of course, it's not just, answer is less formal, but just to is a very informal, but also very common way to write emails when you want to express the idea that there's no special reason for doing something, or it's just something that you're doing very quickly, just to answer your question, or very commonly, just wanted to check with you, or just wanted to let you know. Many people will use this. It's actually not grammatically correct because there's no subject. It should be I just wanted to. But a lot of people will drop the subject and just start with just wanted to let you know that. Just wanted to check with you about, right? So that's a very common informal way to announce your intention in an email. We can, instead of we are able to, ship internationally. Okay, so on the next slide, we have 3 words to choose from. We have sorry, regret, and apologize. And these, of course, have very similar meanings. They're not exactly the same, but they are similar. And which ones do we use for which situation? Well, as we can see here, we have formal, formal, and less formal. So in this case, I would ask students, which is the least formal of these 3 words here? Sorry, regret, or apologize. In this case, sorry is the least formal, so I would use that down here for number 11. But let's start with number 9, obviously, since that's in the order. Now, regret and apologize, I'm not going to tell you that one is more formal than the other. It depends on the situation, and there are obviously a little bit different ways that you use these 2 words. But apologize and regret are both more formal than sorry. So how do we know which one to use in number 9? Well, do you remember in a previous unit we talked about collocations? What words usually go with what other words? And if you study apologize, hopefully you study apologize, and you also study the words that collocate with apologize. What word is normally associated with apologize? Well, you'll notice that for is usually associated with apologize. So we would say, I apologize for. I apologize for what? Not being able to attend the meeting on June 24th. So apologize would fit here, and that is formal. Number 10, you could also write, I beep to inform you that. Now, of course, this is part of a collocation, a very strong collocation, right? All these words here. And of course, the word that starts that collocation is regret. And we looked at that in a previous unit. I regret to inform you that. Regret to inform you that. It's a 5-word collocation, right? And that's a very common collocation, a very strong collocation. You wouldn't break that up. So the last one, of course, we use sorry. Sorry, but I can't make it to the meeting on June 24th. That is the least formal. That is what you might write to a coworker, right? Or to a friend of yours who you work with. So number 11 would be used for business partners who are on a very friendly basis. 9 and 10 would be used for business people communicating who are not very close, but who are and have a professional, more formal relationship. Next, we have get in touch with as opposed to contact. Now, get in touch with, that is a phrasal verb. Phrasal verbs like look up, take care of, these have Scandinavian origins, which are obviously very closely related to Germanic languages. They do not appear in Latin. Latin does not use phrasal verbs, and they are usually considered less formal than their Latinate one-word synonyms. For example, get in touch with, you can use a Latinate word, contact somebody, right? So, number 12, how might I beep him? That's formal, right? How might I contact him? Because contact is more formal. Number 13, how can I get in touch with him? Now, both are fine. Both are perfectly acceptable. You know, again, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but how might I contact him sounds more formal than how can I get in touch with him? Okay, and also note the use of how might and how can, right? Using words of possibility is also more formal than using words like can or will. Okay, so get in touch with versus contact. Next one, we have 4. Really, we have postpone, reschedule, put off, and delay. Those are the key words that we're looking at here. Now, what did I just tell you about phrasal verbs? And you can find a phrasal verb here. Put off, right? A phrasal verb is a verb plus a preposition. Put off means to delay, right? And it is from a Germanic or Scandinavian origin, not Latinate, okay? So here we have formal, 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 and informal. Well, we already know that put off is going to go there because that's informal. So which ones? It doesn't really matter. We could put postpone, reschedule, delay here, but what I did for you is I helped you because I conjugated or put other words in with the keywords to help you figure out which one to put it in. So for number 14, the meeting has what? Has postponed? No, that doesn't make sense. Has been rescheduled? Okay, that makes grammatical sense. So the meeting has been rescheduled until next week. You could, of course, say the meeting has been postponed. No problem. It would have the same amount of formality. Okay. Number 15, is it possible to what? We need a root form of the verb. Here we have postpone. So is it possible to postpone, right? We didn't change the verb. It stays in the original form because of to. Is it possible to postpone the meeting to a later date? Of course you could say, is it possible to reschedule? Is it possible to delay the meeting? No problem. They would have the same level of formality. Okay, good. Number 16, I was wondering if we, and then blank, the meeting for next week. I was wondering if we could, right? Those words go together. So I was wondering if we could delay the meeting for next week. And again, sorry to keep repeating, but you could obviously do this. I was wondering if we could postpone. I was wondering if we could reschedule the meeting for next week. The point is that this word, and this word are more formal than this word. Okay, that's the point here. So postpone, reschedule, delay, those words are more formal than put off or push back, right? You can also use push back, which means the same thing. So number 17 is informal. We're putting off the meeting till next week or until next week. It doesn't matter. We're putting off the meeting till next week. That is the least formal. So And don't worry about, well, is reschedule more formal than postpone, or is delay more formal? No, don't worry about that. They're all the same level of formality. I would not worry about that, right? Okay, so, but if you want to write formally, choose one of these words. Don't use a phrasal verb, put off or push back. Okay. Next, we have the difference between set up and arrange. What is set up? Remember what kind of verb that is? That, of course, is a phrasal verb. Set is your verb, up is your preposition, so that is a phrasal verb. And just in case you were wondering how to spell that, phrasal verb. And I'm sorry, my pen isn't exactly great. So phrasal verb, and that's an R, by the way, not a V. Okay, whoops, what's going on there? Okay, phrasal verb, that's an R, phrasal verb. And arrange is your Latinate. So, number 18, would it be possible to beep a meeting with him for next week? It's formal. Well, as we know, Latinate is more formal. Would it be possible to arrange a meeting with him for next week? Here we would use the informal phrasal verb. Can you set up a meeting with him next week? Same meaning, really. Arrange, set up have the same meaning, but one is less formal, one is more formal. Okay, good. Next we have require and need. And this is something that I noticed that I do, and I've done this my entire life, basically, even before I started teaching. When I wrote an email and it was for business purposes, I would go back and look if I wrote need. For example, do you need anything else? I would change that. I would say, do you require anything else? I just automatically do it because that's the way I was taught, right? Require is more formal than need, okay? Formal, informal. So please feel free to contact me if you need any further assistance or if you require any further assistance. Well, more formally, we would use require. Number 21 is more informal. We can see that again. Just let me know. We talked about that, starting a sentence with just let me know. It sounds friendlier. Now, there's nothing, again, and I emphasize this a lot. I'm sorry if I keep repeating myself, but there's no problem with using informal language in an email. It depends on your audience and the tone that you want to achieve. So just let me know if, that's a perfectly acceptable and actually friendly way to ask somebody, or if they want some information, right? Or if they need something. Just let me know if you need any help, right? It is interesting though. I did make the note that I will always substitute. If I wrote need, I will get rid of it and I will write require. That's just my habit. I just normally do that all the time when I'm writing business emails. If I'm writing to a friend, I don't care, right? But if I'm writing for business purposes, I don't even think about it. I just automatically do it. It's up to you whether you do the same thing, but it is interesting how people will choose more formal language for more formal situations. And of course, most business situations are more formal situations. Okay, another very common one, this is much more common than require and need, is get and receive. So we have get. Which do you think, just looking at these, which do you think is more formal? Well, receive will be more formal than get. Get is, you've probably, in high school, if you studied English in high school, your teachers, or middle school or elementary school, your teachers will have probably told you that get is informal and you should not use it in writing. That's the way I was taught when I was growing up. Which is more formal? Obviously, receive will be more formal. So we would write, would it be possible for me to, which by the way is also a very formal expression. Would it be possible for me to receive more information about your services? And we could reduce this formal expression to can, right? That's informal. Can I get a little more information about your services? So get is a lot less formal than receive. And again, I always do this. I would never write, I didn't get your email to a business contact. I would say, I didn't receive your email. Or, did you get my email? No, I hope you received my email, for example. That sounds more formal. And that's just an automatic, just a habit that people get into. It's one of my habits, but it is a habit that you get into when you want to write formally. Okay, the last one, the difference between make sure and confirm. Number 24, I am writing to beep that you received our new catalog. Received, of course, we just talked about that instead of that you got our new catalog. This is more formal, right? So which is more formal, make sure or confirm? Well, make sure, here you have the two-part verb, right? Make sure of something. That's more of a phrasal verb, right? As we talked about. So I am writing to confirm that you received our new catalog. And number 25, I'm just checking. Here you could say just checking too, but here it's grammatically correct. I am just checking, right? I'm just checking, but it's still informal because we have contraction, and just checking is more of an informal phrase. So I'm just checking to make sure that you got our new catalog. That is informal. Now again, please don't misunderstand me. I'm just showing you the difference between formal and informal language. Of course you can mix them. You could say, I'm just checking to confirm that you got our new catalog. You can do that. But as you can see, that's a mixture of informal and formal. And there's no reason that you can't do that either, right? In fact, it's interesting that as you write emails, you might mix informal style with formal style as you try to move away from a cold, distant business relationship to a warmer, friendlier relationship. And that is kind of the art of writing, right? That is what you'll notice that people will do when they try to adopt a more friendly tone. But the idea is, don't write that way right away, because people will be a little put off by that. They might be put off or offended even. At the worst case, they might be offended by, I don't know this person. Why are they adopting such a friendly or familiar tone with me when I don't know them, right? I'm not their bro, right? Okay, I'm not their buddy. I don't know this person. So they might be, wait, what's going on here? So again, when you're contacting somebody the first time, or you're contacting somebody who's a very important position, or a position that is much higher in an organization, don't write informally. Try to write more formally and choose the correct words to adopt that type of tone. You also want to come off as being professional. So now you know which vocabulary to use to project those kinds of attitudes. Okay, let's do a little bit of exercise here. I know this lesson is running a little bit long. So what I want to do here is just go over the exercises on page 50, I believe, that are in your book. Yep, page 50. And there are 9 sentences. And they are written in a very direct, blunt way. There's no mistakes, really. There's no grammatical or Konglish mistakes in these sentences, but they are kind of blunt. They're a little bit direct, and in some, they might be even a little aggressive. So we want to tone down that language. Maybe we should say tone up that language. So we want to make these sentences seem more formal and more polite. How do we do it? So the first example here we have, number 1. I want you to send me some samples of your product. Now, as you remember in the previous lesson, I said, please avoid this expression, I want you to. That is rather demanding. It's not very polite. I want you to send me some samples. So what can we use instead of that? We can use could you. Would you? You can say would you. Would you please? Could you please? I would appreciate it if you could send us some samples of your product. There are many different ways to do these. This is a good exercise for you. If you have another idea and you have a question, please comment in the comment section below. Be happy to say, yes, this is good, or no, you need to make some changes, grammatical changes here, but then it would be okay. Those are probably the types of questions I would anticipate that you might ask. So yeah, feel free to ask or volunteer other suggestions or other ways to change these so that they are more polite, or they don't sound as aggressive. Okay, number 2. Email or call me when you have a problem. This is kind of funny, actually, because it's assuming that the other person will have a problem, but you don't know if they're going to have a problem or not. So we need to change that, obviously. But also we have the problem here, email or call me. This is command structure. You're using the verbs as a command. You are commanding somebody to do something, which may not always be the most polite thing to do. If you're the boss, no problem. But if you're not the boss and you're writing to somebody, try to avoid giving them commands. So how do we change it? One suggestion is, please, the magic word is please, right? Please do not hesitate, right? That's also kind of a command, but you're using please. Please do not hesitate to contact us. And by the way, do not hesitate to contact us is a collocation. And as I said before, using collocations are more formal. Many times they sound more formal in writing. So we regret to inform you that. Please do not hesitate to contact us at your earliest convenience. These are common collocations that we see in emails, and they do have a more formal tone. Please do not hesitate to contact us if you encounter, so we changed haben in German to encounter, which is Latin origin, right? So that's interesting. And instead of saying problem, we said difficulties, because I think I mentioned this before, but American business people kind of avoid the word problem. Most often they change it to issue. If you have any issues, please contact us. But here, maybe it's not an issue, maybe it's a difficulty, maybe it's a technical situation, I'm not sure, but you could use difficulties also instead of problem. And that sounds a little bit more formal. Okay, number 3. Your price is too high. That's very direct, very blunt, right? Very to the point. We want to soften it. So remember we talked about this in the previous lesson. Use softening phrases. It seems a bit too, okay? So it seems that the price is a bit too high would be a good way to change that. So that would seem a lot more polite and less direct and in your face as your price is too high, okay? So it seems that the price is a bit too high. Okay, number 4. Tell me if you will do this or not. Now this is funny, and I use this in my class. I actually got this in an email. I don't want to tell a long story, but a short story. I received an email from someone I don't know, through a contact of mine, and they were asking me if I could proofread their annual company report in English. They publish various versions, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, and English. They didn't have an English proofreader. They asked me to do it. And well, they explained the project, and at the end of the email, the man, who I don't know, wrote me, "Tell me if you will do this or not." I thought, whoa, that's pretty blunt. That's pretty in your face. But of course, he didn't mean it that way. I understand that, but it did seem a little shocking, right? It's like, wow, this is really blunt, right? But again, it's the question of, he's writing in a foreign language, right? He may not be sure the subtlety of rewriting or writing in a way that seems more subtle or more not so much direct or aggressive, right? So how would I change that? Tell me if you will do this or not. Basically, the person wants to know if I want to accept this job or not, if I will do this project or if I don't have time. That's basically what they want to know. So one way to do that would be to rewrite it. Please let me know if you are able to do this. Now again, this is a little more informal. Please let me know. He could have written, please inform us if you are able to do this. Keep it positive. Don't say if you are not able to do this. Keep it positive. If you are able to do this. It means the same thing, but you're focusing on the positive. You're not on the negative. So please let me know if you are able to do this. If you can do this, if you are able to, more formal. Please let me know if you are able to do this. That's much more polite. Or you could say, please let me know if you are interested, right? And you could say, please inform us if you are interested. That's fine. That's more formal, actually. But again, like I said, sometimes you mix casual expressions with your formal writing because you want to be friendlier. He just wrote a long email explaining the job, and he wants to know if I'm available to do this job or not. So please let me know. Please, it's fine. He wants to be a little bit more friendly, maybe. Please let me know if you were able to do this. Please let me know if you are interested. Much better than tell me if you will do this or not. Okay? Sounds a lot better. Number 5. Please give me your response to me immediately. Now, not only is this very direct and blunt, it's also repetitive, right? Give me your response to me. Of course to you. That's not necessary. So we don't really need that. That's repetitive or redundant. And that's one of the things you should avoid in writing. We'll talk about that in the next lesson. Anyway, so please give me your response to me immediately. That's a little demanding. They did use please, so that's fine. Give me, though, is less formal. How can we change this to a more formal style? Well, one way would be to, We would greatly appreciate a response today. Now, of course, sometimes in some situations, you're writing to somebody, you need them to take action immediately. You need them to send you a report. You require them to send you a report today. You need the information right away. Whether or not, if you're not the boss, you have to be diplomatic in how you ask people to do something that is urgent. So, we would greatly appreciate a response today. Give them a deadline. Don't just say immediately, because that makes people think, oh, immediately, oh, right away. It may not be accepted very well, but if you give them a deadline, it's fine. And saying we would greatly appreciate a response, that means it would be nice, we would like it if you could give us a response today. That's more acceptable, I would say. You could also write, due to the urgency of this situation, at the beginning of a very urgent request, right? So you may have explained the situation, say, well, due to the urgency of this situation, we would greatly appreciate a response today, or we would really appreciate an immediate response, or a response as soon as you can. Don't put ASAP, spell it out, as soon as you can. But it's a nice touch to put due to the urgency of the situation, so they understand. It's not like you don't want to be demanding. You're not trying to be bossy. You're just explaining, look, we have a problem. We have an urgent situation. Please respond immediately. Okay. Number 6, sometimes people get the wrong information, or they assume the incorrect information, and you realize that, and you want to correct them, right? So in this case, you want to tell somebody, oh, the order is not for 12 millimeter ball bearings. Ball bearings are just a part that is used in machinery, moving machinery. Don't worry about the meaning of that right now, but just, for example, the dimensions of a product are wrong. And actually, this is I adapted this from an email that I did get. Again, I don't want to tell a long story. Somebody was asking me to write a book for a high school reading series, and they laid out the chapter diagram. First they wanted this, then they wanted this, then they wanted this, and I read it, and I thought, oh yeah, it's a good project, but I had a few questions. And so I wrote back and said, sure, this sounds great, but I just had a few questions. In one case, do you want me to do this, and then I should do this? And she wrote back and said, no, we want you to do this, not this. And then she wrote, do you understand now? And I'm like, whoa, what? Do you understand now? That sounds like a mother scolding a child. It's this, not this. Do you understand now? So obviously this can be very direct, and I was a little surprised by that. But of course I immediately thought, look, okay, she doesn't mean to have that type of tone in her email. She obviously didn't mean it. I've worked with her before on other projects. She's a sweet lady. She absolutely does not mean to sound like a mother scolding a child. So obviously I understood that, but your contacts in other countries may not understand that. They may think, wow, this is very aggressive or rude. So hopefully they'll understand. But you don't want to have the chance of misunderstanding, obviously, so we have to be careful. How do we rewrite this? It would be better to write something like this. Please note that. This is a good expression to use, and we covered this, I believe, in Unit 3 when we're talking about collocations. Please note that when you want to correct misinformation, incorrect information. Please note that the order is for 16 millimeter ball bearings, not 12 millimeter ball bearings. Okay, I had to use ellipses because I don't have a space, but 16 millimeter ball bearings, not 12 millimeter. We hope that clears up. We hope that clears up any misunderstanding or miscommunication. This is a great expression to use, and I encourage you to use it for this type of situation. We hope that clears up any misunderstanding. When you are correcting the other person, they have the misinformation, they have the incorrect information. You want to correct them, but you want to be polite about it. Please note that it's A, not B. I hope, or we hope, this clears up any misunderstanding. Very good way, very diplomatic way to handle that situation. Okay, next. Number 7. Didn't you read my email? What's wrong with you? Okay, we don't want to do that. Didn't you read my email? The conference is in October, not November. So this is similar to number 6. If you send an email to somebody and it's apparent, from subsequent email, they reply or another email, you contact them again, and it seems like they didn't get the information that you sent them yesterday or a week ago or some previous time. Don't accuse them of not reading your email. You're accusing somebody. Don't accuse people, right? Perhaps try to figure out maybe your email was lost. That's a possible explanation, but don't accuse somebody. Didn't you read my email? What's wrong with you? What, are you ignoring my emails? No, we don't want to have that impression. So don't write, didn't you read my email, because that's very aggressive. How would we rewrite that? We might write something like this. Perhaps my email went missing. Perhaps my email went into your junk mail folder. It happens, right? Then we have this expression here, please be advised that. Now in the previous exercise, we went over again, please note that. That was one of the collocations we learned in Unit 3. So please be advised that. It's similar, almost exactly the same. Also a good expression to use when you want to correct some misinformation or you want to emphasize that this is the correct information. Please be advised that the conference is in October, not in November. Okay, that's what I said in my previous email. Perhaps it got lost. Please be advised that. Please note that. It is A, not B. Okay, good. Number 8. The computer system is on the fritz. You had better send over a technician today. Okay, in the previous video lesson, we talked about don't use idiomatic expressions, especially if you're writing an email to a country where English is not the first language. They may be unfamiliar with the idioms. And we see the idiom here, the computer system is on the fritz. What in the world does that mean? That's an idiomatic expression that means it is broken, is not working properly. Kojang naseo, right, in Korean. A computer system is not working properly. You had better, right? We talked about that before. You had better send over a technician today or immediately. You had better, again, don't avoid that because that's a threat. You had better send over a technician today. What's going to happen if I don't? Okay, so be careful using had better, as we talked about before. How would we rewrite this? Well, one possible way would be to do this. It appears that, okay, we're using a softening phrase. It appears that, it seems that the computer system is not working. Plain, everyday English. Avoid idiomatic expressions. Then please send a technician today, right? Give them a deadline. Obviously, it's urgent. You could also say, due to the urgency of the situation, it's very important that you send a technician immediately. Or, we require a technician immediately, or we require immediate assistance, right? These are formal expressions, and they're not, accusatory or threatening. You had better send over a technician. So avoid those very direct, almost, aggressive, almost threatening expressions. Okay, last one, number 9. We expect to hear from you ASAP. Okay, now sometimes I will notice that students will write emails like this when they're contacting people, on the first contact, right? They're emailing somebody and they're explaining their company or their services, and the person they're writing to could be a potential client, right? And they want to end the email in some way to keep the communication going, and they hope to hear back from them, but they write, we expect to hear from you ASAP, which is not appropriate for that type of email. I mean, absolutely not. In fact, I don't think you would write that for really any type of email unless you're the boss of the person that you're writing to. We expect to sounds very demanding, as I went over in the unit about common mistakes, right? Avoid using expect for, look forward to or hope, right? We expect is a little bit more demanding. It can be aggressive. And ASAP, avoid using ASAP, right? It's better to spell it out as soon as possible, or you could even write immediately, but use softening expressions with that. Could you please do this as soon as possible? We would appreciate it if you sent us the document as soon as possible, not ASAP, right? So what's one way to do that? We could write, we are looking forward to a response. This is much more polite. Looking forward to, instead of expect, to a response at your earliest convenience. Okay, that would be much better if you're writing the email that I told you about before, the situation where you're contacting a potential client for the first time. Right? It's not their duty, it's not their job to get back to you if they're interested in your products or services. If they're interested, they will contact you at their earliest convenience. It's up to them. So that's one way to do it. If it is urgent, if it's a different situation and you are hoping for or you need a response very quickly, we hope that you will respond by the end of today. Give them a deadline. We talked about that before. Give them a deadline. By the end of today, by the end of the week. We hope that. That's also much more polite than we expect. Okay, so that basically brings Unit 4 to an end. We've talked about in Unit 4 tone, how to adjust tone. We've talked about what are the different situations in which you would adjust your tone? What are the different factors that you should consider when determining whether your email should be written in an informal or a formal way? And please, again, don't misunderstand me. There's nothing wrong with an informal email. 80 to 90% of emails, business emails, are already rather informal because they are between people who already have a good working relationship between each other. They also are probably very friendly with each other. But when you don't have a relationship with somebody, a strong relationship, or you are writing an email for more professional or maybe even governmental purposes, then you should adopt a more formal tone. So, you know now what are the situational, the factors to determine whether you're writing as formal or informal. And we went over a lot of different techniques for adjusting your tone. And finally, in this lesson, we took a look at vocabulary and its kind of unique and interesting historical situation, development in English for why choosing certain words are more formal than other words. So I hope that was interesting to you, and I hope that it helped you in improving your English and also specifically in improving your next business email. Okay, well, thanks for studying with me as always, and I hope to see you in the next lesson. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.